On the first day of Navaratri, we worship a form of Shakti called Shailputri. Here is her story. Goddess Shakti represents a pure divine female power. In Sanskrit, Shail means mountain and Putri means daughter. Together, they mean daughter of the mountain. This is the legend of Shailputri. This story starts with Brahma, the creator, and his son Kama, the god of love. Kama's wife Ratri was the goddess of love. Brahma had observed the gods for some time, and he noticed how he and Saraswati were married, and how Vishnu and Lakshmi were married. He couldn't help but worry for his single friend Shiva. Brahma thought that getting Shiva married would benefit the universe. So Brahma had Kama and Rati use their powers of love to arrange a marriage for Shiva. Simple? Not at all. All of Kama and Rati's attempts failed. Some of their acts were so extreme that they enraged Shiva. One attempt as such infuriated Shiva, which led to him incinerating Kama's eye. Shiva always said that he was a yogin, that he was meant to stay away from these worldly things. Kama and Rati's attempts were obstructing him. Running out of ideas to get his friend married, Brahma resorted to praying and worshipping Goddess Shakti. Goddess Shakti was pleased with Brahma and offered him one boon. He asked her to take birth in this world, in hopes of marrying Shiva. She agreed to this. Brahma was overjoyed with the news. He promptly informed his son, King Daksha, of the news and urged him to carry out a penance. After hundreds of years of praying and worshipping, the goddess presented herself before Daksha and his wife. She was pleased with them and offered them a boon. Daksha asked her to take birth into this world as his daughter, and the goddess complied. However, she warned Daksha that if he were to ever disrespect her, then she would leave this world. Thinking nothing of it, Daksha rejoiced. A few years passed, and Daksha's wife gave birth to the goddess. They celebrated her coming into their world with joy and called her Sati. During her childhood, sage Narada and Brahma came to visit her in the palace. They reminded Sati of why she came into this world and her mission to marry Shiva. Years later, Sati decided to carry out a penance. She was extremely dedicated. Gods and sages came to watch her. They were blown away by her extreme focus and passion. One day, the gods and sages who were examining Sati decided to visit Shiva in Mount Kailash. They praised Shiva. Brahma suggested that he marry someone. Upon hearing this, Shiva sighed. He told them that he was a yogin. Shiva explained that yogins should be detached from these things. He finally agreed to marry under the conditions that his wife would be loving and a yogini. Brahma spoke of Sati, a beautiful girl who was loving and executing a penance. After some persuasion, Shiva accepted the idea. This satisfied all of the gods and sages. Meanwhile, Sati was still executing her penance. Shiva observed Sati, and he too was appalled by her devotion. He appeared before Sati and extended one boon. Sati asked for them to get married. Shiva granted the boon, and the pair got happily married in Daksha's palace. A few years later, Brahma planned a grand yagna with lots of guests, including Shiva and A few years later, Brahma planned a grand yagna with lots of guests, including Shiva and Sati. When Daksha arrived at the event, every soul bowed down to him. The only people who did not bow down to Daksha were Brahma and Shiva. Brahma was Daksha's father, so it made sense for him to stay standing. And Shiva was of a higher position than Brahma, so it also made sense for Shiva to stay standing. However, Daksha had other ideas. He thought that his son-in-law Shiva was insulting him by staying standing. This provoked Daksha. In a rage, Daksha crushed Shiva. Nandi became enraged and began to retaliate when Shiva intervened and assured everyone that he had not been cursed. Everyone began to leave. Daksha returned home with a newfound grudge. A while later, Sati noticed that people were traveling to an event. After inquiring with her friends, Sati realized that there was a big yagna taking place and being hosted by none other than her father, Daksha. Sati rushed home and told Shiva about her father's yagna and how they weren't invited. Sati was very irritated, but she also missed her family very much. She decided that she would go to the yagna. At the yagna, Sati's mother and sister greeted her. However, her father continuously ignored her presence. This began to annoy Sati, and she began preaching how no yagna could be complete without her husband Shiva. Daksha proceeded to insult Shiva and Sati. Hearing Daksha insult her family was unbearable for Sati. She was horrified that Daksha also broke their agreement. Sati became so humiliated that she threw herself into the sacrificial fire. Shiva's ganas explained the painful death of Sati to him. From his hair, Shiva created two beastly forms, Virabhadra and Bhadrakali, and ordered them to destroy the yagna. Virabhadra got carried away and decapitated Daksha and killed others. After the horrific event, Shiva resuscitated those who died and gave them blessings. Shiva revived Daksha, replacing the decapitated head with the sacrificed sheep's head. Daksha apologized to Shiva and spent the rest of his years as a devotee of Shiva. Grief-stricken, Shiva carried Sati's body around the universe, recollecting their memories together. Vishnu cut Sati's body into 51 parts, which fell on the earth in various spots. The spots where the parts landed became holy sites people prayed to the goddess. These 51 sites are called Shaktipeeth. Shiva became miserable. He retreated to the mountains and meditated. The gods noticed Shiva's grief and thought of ways to help him. At the same time, a powerful asura, Tarak Asura, had shown himself. Taruk Asura had a blessing that he could only be killed by Shiva's son. This frightened the gods, as Shiva's didn't have a son and his wife had just passed away. They decided to pray to goddess Shakti once again. They wanted to remind her of her form Sati, who had been married to Shiva. They asked her to take birth in their world again. She agreed to be born again, this time as the daughter of Himavan and Menavati. Himavan and Mena performed penance for a long time. The goddess gave them a boon, and they asked for the goddess to take birth as their daughter. Soon enough, Mena gave birth to the goddess. She was named Parvati. Since Parvati was the daughter of the Himavan, she is known as Shailputri.